What's up, everybody? Welcome aboard to Bubba's Bottom Line, and as always, it's great to be here. Hope everybody's having a great week. Hope you're enjoying the PGA if you're a golf fan. Interesting scoring on the one tournament that's supposed to be the easiest of them all, but it is what it is. And of course, an interesting week last week in the markets as well. We've got all kinds of things going on. We've got Korea. We've got the market selling off a little bit. We've got the continued lack of respect for Donald Trump and the continual try to get him out of office, and a whole bunch of stuff that could be either way. It could be something that we could be looking for and something that we can looking at, and of course, as we do look back, we finally saw a little bit of selling off in the markets, and I think that should be no surprise. I mean, as I continue to say week in and week out, that the markets are looking for a reason to sell off, and what that reason is going to be, nobody really knows yet. Now, again, it could be North Korea. This could escalate into creating enough fear that the markets could actually now want to sell off. Hard to say, but certainly we did see a little bit of a spike in volatility, especially on Thursday. But again, if we just take a walk down memory lane, and we look and we say, okay, so you have people that continue to say that the earnings are great. Okay. Now, earnings season is almost over, and I say, yeah, by the pure raw numbers, earnings are great. But we're not working with real pure raw numbers. All right. We're in an economy that is still basically in a recession. Now, you can argue with me all you want and tell me this, that, the other thing, and yet New York and California, maybe not. But the bulk of the middle class is still in a recession. The bulk of the middle class is still not really working. Earnings suck. Wages suck. So we can continue to hide our head in the sands as ostriches like to do, which as our federal government likes to do, as everybody, as Janet Yellen of the Federal Reserve likes to do. We can continue to ignore it. And of course, hopefully someday it will go away. But of course, the kicking the can down the road approach has never worked. So why would we expect it to work differently this time? It's kind of silly, but in the meantime, so the market sold off. Now again, we're still around 2% from the all-time highs. So it's not like we went into a major disaster. It's not like the world is collapsing around us. But I think you should take note that those are things that are potential. Now again, let me be perfectly clear here. I am not a perma-bear. I am not only a bear of the stock markets. I am actually a bull of the stock markets over the long haul. I own equities and I'm not selling them. But in the short term, I believe the proper side of the market is to be on the short side. I believe, as you've watched how fast that these things want to go down, that you have a much greater chance to make faster money playing the short side of the market. But again, it's not an urgent, and it's not going to be tomorrow. But what we have to pay attention to is the speed at which the markets, when they start to go down, how fast they go down. That is something that has to be noted. What we have to take note of is how fast markets decide to turn around. One of the things that we tend to forget, because we get sloppy, we get complacent, and all those things happen that are not good for investing, is that the markets are dying to go down. They're searching endlessly to find a reason to have a big sell-off. In absence of that reason, they had continued to drift higher. On Thursday, basically all week was a week, but on Thursday when we had the big plunge, more related to the fear of potential out of North Korea, And of course, we're not saying that that's not going to be the event. It very well might turn out to be the event overall. We don't know that yet. But as it stands now, it has not been the event. It has not created enough fear. Yes, we had a little bit of a rise, a little spike in volatility, which is what we would expect. So as we look at North Korea, you had some results that, again, would be something that would be of expectations, but certainly not something deep. So will North Korea, will the threat or the actual action that we have to take be the catalyst that does indeed push the market lower? Not really hard, not really easy to say. You know, when you look at the big picture here, the big dynamics of the market, you have the element of cheap money. Cheap money has been the fuel to the fire for 9 years or so. Cheap money continues to keep investors trying to pour in with their ever chase for yield. So it's hard to say that North Korea, in its current state, will be the big catalyst. Now, certainly, if there's bombing or something goes on, then of course all bets are off. We do then get the major catalyst. But is this it? Again, I go back and look at economic data with everything that's going on, and nothing is very good. All right, so there is the markets certainly want to sell off. They're searching for a reason to sell off, but they may do it shortly. They may not. Now, if we look at the outside markets that might be affected by what's going on, you have gold now rallying up, trying to take out 1,300 again. Now, just to make it perfectly clear, gold at 1,300 is still about 7% lower than it was last time the dollar was here, number one. Number two, gold bounced off of the 1260 level back before the North Korean conflict. So it isn't like that this was a fear trade. Again, one of the things I think you have to make very clear to yourself and to understand is that gold does not typically drive on fear. We have everybody tell us that it's on fear, but gold is a hard asset, sometimes thought of as a currency that can be used, but not the major fear place. It would, if you every time the market sold off, you thought you would run to gold, you'd be broke. That's not what it's for. It's a hard asset that you should own, have some representation, but it is not going to be as dramatically affected by the things that are going on. And if you don't understand that, again, you can look at the numbers, you'll see that the overall fear gauge that they like to make it out to be is a little bit off kilter. Oil. Now, we've got troubles in Venezuela. We've got troubles everywhere. We've got the crooks and the thieves from OPEC trying to manipulate the price of oil, yet oil refuses to go a lot higher. It's up at the top end of its range. I would say that oil would probably be a sale here. The treasury bonds are the only thing that are pushing higher that would give you a real indication of fear, because certainly the dollar is not going anywhere. So as we look at the picture, is there been a lot of fear here? And I don't think so. How could the dollar be hovering at 16-month lows or so if there's going to be any real fear here? So yes, North Korea could be the overall catalyst. There could be some issues coming from here, but it hasn't been proved yet that that's going to be indeed the story. And it's not that we have to have total proof, but again, if we're going to get a market to break lower, it's got to only break lower off of something that is like an event that we have no idea. So now they're bracing for North Korea, and they may be bracing for the worst as an investing standpoint. In the meantime, the markets are in a bubble. They remain and continue to be in that bubble that they're in, and it'll pop. Now, again, the question is when. Now, we know now, well, we don't know for a fact, but we The assumption now is that Janet Yellen and her crew of cronies, which God knows how did we get saddled with these guys, but they're probably not going to raise rates again this year, which again is ridiculous, ignorant, clueless, but of course that's who they are. They've already raised into basic weakness twice, and the only way that we're going to turn things around is to get rates back to a number that banks are going to lend out and the average borrower can borrow. Now, you think that this is, great and wonderful, and it's kind of like deflation, okay? Deflation is great for consumers, for prices, but not necessarily good for the suppliers or the manufacturers. And again, I'm all for a free economy and let the markets decide, not the imbies from the Federal Reserve deciding what we need. But because we have no ability to borrow money, because we have no true free interest rate market, because interest rate markets should be a free market price discovery model just like every other market, but we don't have that. So with all of these things that we don't have, you've created this little bit of deflationary scenario. Now, again, you're seeing that play out a lot with farmers and producers. Look at grain prices. They're falling off the face of the earth because we don't have a true free market system. So if we're going to get a true free market system, it means banks have to lend money to average guys to build businesses. Now, on the other side of that coin, we see the banks once again exploding their loan balances through other sources, which again, if you don't think it's a problem, okay, don't worry about it. But I can guarantee you that it's going to be a problem. Debt in this country has reached epidemic proportions. Debt in this country is significantly higher than the debt that took place in 2008. And the debt we have here is not as good. But banks are aggressively buying loans from third-party lenders, and they're paying handsomely for that. As I've mentioned to you before, I have a friend of mine that is not a subprime lender, but a higher risk lender, and he can't get enough loans that the bank is for buying. They continue to buy every loan he gets, he can sell to. Now, the only ones he sells them is the ones he's not willing to take on himself. So think about that for a minute. If the individual who's making the original interest will not take on the loan, but yet the bank will take it in a heartbeat, what does that tell you? It certainly has to tell you that there's issues that, once again, we're not deciding to cover. So because the bank has the Fed backing it, because the banks can, get away with as much as you can imagine, they're not being as diligent as they should be. What they should be doing is they should be writing loans to the average business guy, to entrepreneurs that are trying to build businesses that need the money to operate. But of course, we don't have that. That's another typical problem that is brought to you by and courtesy of the imbeciles that run the Federal Reserve. Again, manipulating currency. Have you watched what's going on with the US dollar and the euro currency? Manipulation of currency, manipulation of interest rates is a totally flawed, ignorant system. Witness the Bitcoin, okay? Bitcoin itself is a truly free market that is being traded. And of course, I think Bitcoin got some exciting news last week. Now, I personally have not traded it. I've used it for certain things, but I don't own it. I don't really trade it. I wish I did. Obviously, if you'd have spent $10,000 7 years ago, it's worth only $380 million today. But I did not. But my point is very simple. It's truly a free market system. But the big news is that the Chicago Board of Options Exchange has approved a derivative product for Bitcoin so that it will become recognized and trade on the exchanges, or at least cryptocurrencies in general, which is very big because like a guy like me that would not trade Bitcoin and what I'm not sure is a strong or solid market now allows me to play, because now the market, the money that I trade, is now guaranteed by the Chicago Board of Options Exchange. So if I make a trade and I win money or make money, I get paid. I don't have to worry what happens with places like Mt. Gox if something fails. Why? Because the SIBO backs up my trades. So that could be very big for Bitcoin as it continues to trollop and go higher. In the meantime, we're going to step out here for a break. This is Bubba's Bottom Line, real markets, real people. Make sure you get the Bubba Show every single day at libertytalk.fm, 2 to 3 Eastern Time. Get the Sporting Edge on the weekends. Check it out, okay? Go to libertytalk.com and check it out for me. We're going to step out here for a break. We'll be right back with more of Bubba's Bottom Line after the break. Welcome back to Bubba's Bottom Line. And of course, we've been rolling on a number of topics today. And of course, why stop now? We talked a little bit earlier about gold, and gold is being, the shorts are covering their gold, one of the reasons for the rally. But I think it's interesting that the commercials that have been short gold are covering. Now, typically they're probably covering too soon, which means we probably have another dip. Although I think gold is strong, but I think that this levels where we're at could be a problem. I think that you could see a potential sell-off. Now, I'm a big fan of owning gold. I'm a big fan of thinking that gold is going higher. But again, this is something that you buy. It's like, you know, you get a gift from your aunt or your uncle, you know, when you were 10 years old. It's something you buy it, you put it away, and you forget it. All right. This is not a typical liquid investment that you want to trade. This is an investment that you just want to put away. And hopefully you have enough capital and you can just hold it and leave it for your children. But at the end of the day, it's a great play. I think you buy it. But again, here, I think if I'm buying it, I buy 25% of what I'm willing to commit to and look for opportunities to buy more. But banks are starting to cover, which would actually scare me from the long side. We talked a little bit about Bitcoin. I think what the street doesn't understand about the Bitcoin is it's got the Federal Reserve crapping in their pants because they don't know how to deal with it. It's got banks, you know, that did not get involved, that did not believe, thinking a lot about, because again, should this really work, should it become really legitimate, it will cause a major problem in the entire financial system. Okay? But again, I'm not against it. I'm just not, again, I don't know enough directly about it to say that I'm 100% behind it either. I know that the blockchain technology that they're using is very good, and I think from my understanding, Russia and China already use that together. So you're seeing lots of money flow out of places because, again, everybody's worried about martial law and government interference in their capital, which is the same reason that many people don't want to buy and store gold in a vault, because they're afraid. You want to put it in your basement, then you do that, right? But with the inevitability of war, okay, with North Korea, and again, I believe that this is going to escalate. That's my opinion. I believe that Sun Myung is not, he does not care. He himself wants to live, but his people he could care less about. My opinion again, the same as before. This is strictly an opinion of where I believe he stands. So I think that he doesn't really care. And of course, I saw some pictures last week of all the people of North Korea and their army and whatever, and they all look like they're anorexic. It looks like they haven't eaten in months. The skinniest I've ever seen. But in the meantime, it is what it is, and I think that he's nuts enough to create a potential war. And of course, it should not be a war. It should be you took your missiles at us, we're gonna just knock you out. Okay, this will be if this does escalate, this is not going to be like the Syria event we saw. This is going to be total destruction. This is going to be, once again, dropping the bomb. And isn't it amazing that Trump, who basically said the same words as Truman, would be the guy to do it? At the end of the day, if it does escalate, it's going to be ugly. So we're going to see probably a lot to be told this week coming forward. Now, we are coming into the slowest times of the trading year because it's big vacation times. We're getting closer to Labor Day. But this is just the time not to get complacent and not to get lazy. I'm not telling you to sit there and stare at your machine. But this is just the time that you can get much bigger moves because markets are much thinner right now. So just be careful in here. And this is Bubba's Bottom Line. And I am Todd Bubba Horwitz. We're going to stop by here for a break, and I'll come back with my opinion piece, because what would Bubba's Bottom Line be without it? Don't forget to check out the Bubba Show at LibertyTalk.fm every single day at 2 to 3 Eastern Time, and the Sporting Edge on the weekends. We're going to stop out here. Bubba's Bottom Line. We'll be right back with my opinion after the break. Welcome back to Bubba's Bottom Line. It is none other than me, Todd Bubba Horwitz, and always great to be and share some time with you. Great to be here. All right, so here is the destruction of the United States of America between the left media and the left politicians. They are destroying everything. And if you're left, God bless you. I don't have a problem with the individuals. I don't have a problem with the left or the right. In fact, I go back to a time when I was a young voter growing up where the difference between the left and the right was only some of the ideas that they had for the way we live, you know, and birth control, some other things, which was fine. But we've become so far apart. And of course, that great man, Bernie Sanders, the guy who makes over $1 million a year, the guy who never had a real job in his life, the guy who is going to drop dead soon, wants to talk about socialism, and he wrote his new guide. And who did he go after when he wrote his guide on the economy? He went after the people that are already naturally socialist, the kids that are still living on their parents' paycheck. Right? Again, you're talking about kids that don't pay any expenses to begin with. Right? You go to the good colleges and you talk about socialism. You don't call it socialism, but you talk about free education and about free this and about higher minimum wage. Look at the audience he's going after. They're already basically more affluent to begin with. They already live off their parents anyways. They're already not out in the workforce and don't understand it to begin with. So again, Bernie Sanders, really? Again, it's just so stupid. And yet he gets all this airtime because the left wants to be total imbeciles and ridiculously stupid when it comes to this. And I have no problem. I'm no fan of the right either. So let's not confuse that this is a political message. I think they're all crooks. I think they'd all cut your heart out for a quarter and would sell you down the river, whether it be Mitch McConnell, who has done a horrible job, or whether it be Nancy Pelosi or either side. Take your choice. They would sell you down the river for a quarter. And that's in my opinion. Okay. I just tell you this, okay, from my own observations, that we have a system that is totally broken down. We have a system of a bunch of morons that could care less about the people that they represent. You can start with Bernie Sanders. You can go to Chicago with their imbecile sanctuary city, with their ridiculous, stupid sales tax on sugar. Okay, didn't de Blasio try that? You can go on de Blasio from New York trying to get the rich to pay for his subway system. Now, wouldn't it be amazing if these idiots would at least have a budget once that they'd have to live by? Is that not what we were supposed to do in the first place? That is, to me, the overall bigger problem is, where is it written, where in the Constitution, where in the Bill of Rights, where in anything is it said that cities the federal government and nobody has to worry about living on a budget. Whereas if you or I did half of what those guys did, we would be in one of two places, which is jail or bankruptcy court. Okay, but yet they have the ability to continue to flush the system with garbage, and all in the words that, well, we're doing it for you. We're doing it for you. Yeah, you're doing it for your own self, so you can put the money and steal my money and put it in your pocket. This is the issues that are upon us, and we've got the debt ceiling coming up. And again, I talked about this a couple weeks ago, and I don't know if Trump has the ability to do this. I don't know if he would do it, but if it's up to me, shut it down. Let the United States default. They're not going anywhere. We're going to pay our debt. We're going to pay our bills. Do you think the world's largest economy, the world's #1 defender of everybody, the one place that everybody knows is relatively safe, do you actually think that a bond or a debt downgrade is going to bother the economy here? Do you really possibly believe that you're going to listen to the rhetoric from the morons that actually run this country? You've got one person right now that is visible. Well, actually, his cabinet's pretty good too, his generals. But the leader of the pack, Donald Trump, you can like him, you can hate him, I don't really care. But the one thing he does care about, that from what I can tell, is the United States of America. He is the one guy that doesn't have his hands deep inside your pocket trying to rip you off of everything that you have and trying to destroy the middle class. All right. Now, again, you can hate him. That's quite all right with me. I don't really care. Okay? This is not a political message. This is purely a business message that this guy is running this like a business and the rest of them don't like it, which is why Mitch McConnell comes out and says, well, Donald Trump doesn't understand how the system works. How does the system work, Mitch? You steal all my money and then you get something passed? Okay, or when you and Nancy Pelosi come out arm in arm when you raise the debt ceiling and say, hey, we screwed you again. We took more of your money away. Is that how the system works? I don't know about what you think, but I can tell you one thing. I'd hate to be drowning and have to count on any of those to save me, but I do believe that Donald Trump and his upper tier would definitely try to save me, whereas the rest of them, they'd let me drown. That'll do it for today. This is Bubba's Bottom Line, Todd Bubba Horwitz. Everybody have a great week. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. Bubba's Bottom Line. Take care, everybody. We'll see you later.